Well, before the week is over, I wanted to do a quick video and take a look at what's going on over at Sotheby's in Hong Kong. I mentioned them a few weeks ago and let everybody know that there were these sales coming up, but now we're right on top of them. The Chinese sales, the bulk of them, are going to take place tomorrow on Friday. And there's 3 or 4 auctions going on, some incredible rarities. And what's most amazing is that so far, the auctions that have been held in Sotheby's this week over there have seemed to be, for the most part, completely unaffected by everything that's going on in the world. It seems incredible to me. I know that when they schedule these sales, they don't know what's going to be going on down the road. Sotheby's do the best they can, and they have no way of knowing. But right now, you've got suddenly Shanghai is under lockdown. 330 million Chinese are basically locked up. China's GDP growth is anticipated not to be that good going forward. The U.S. economy yesterday, they came out and the GDP had plummeted down to an annualized growth rate of about 1.6% or something. You got the war in Ukraine. All these sort of negative things going on in the world that you would think would keep people in their seats or away from auctions and sort of conserving capital. And what's happening? People are taking capital and putting it into art in a very strong way as quickly as they can. And the Sotheby sales are the proof of that. And some of the results we've seen this week, for example, the Modern Evening auction they held on the 27th grossed $543 million Hong Kong, which is around $65 or so million US. And then you had the De Beers Blue Diamond, which sold, which was on the front page of all the news this morning. Here's the stone. And I know we don't talk about jewelry much at all because it's not part of what we do, but I thought it would be fun to take a look at this because it is an indicator. And this diamond was an extraordinarily rare diamond. It was discovered by the De Beers Company. It was taken out of the famous Cullinan mine, which is the same mine that the Hope Diamond came out of. And it also is what's known as fancy vivid blue. It's a very rare class of diamond. Now the Hope Diamond weighs over 45 carats. It's a very, very large stone. If you've ever seen it at the Smithsonian, it's a beast. But if you've ever wondered what it might be worth in the market, it's like wondering what the Mona Lisa is worth. Well, you have a little hint right here in the results of this auction. This diamond was just 15.1 carat. All right, and it is beautifully colored. It was beautifully cut. You'll notice all the different shades of blue that are evident in this photograph through the stone, the way it was cut, and that was the point of it. You have every shade of blue imaginable when light hits it and it's reflected, and this is what you see. So you have a dark blue that's almost black, and then you have very, very light periwinkle blues, and you have sky blues, and you have royal blues, and you have every blue imaginable in this, the full spectrum. And that's really the point. That's what makes it so beautiful. And this stone ended up selling for 450 million Hong Kong dollars, which is in today's currency comes out to about little over $57 million US. Now the Hope Diamond is 3 times larger and is obviously much more famous. It's the most famous gem in the world by all accounts. And so what's it worth? $500 million, $1 billion? Who knows? But this was quite a sale, and it showed that there was still a ready, willing, and able market to step up when something comes along that's truly extraordinary. This ended up, I think, being the second highest price ever paid for a fancy vivid blue diamond. The other one that sold, I think, sold for just about $1,000 more a few years ago. So that's an interesting result. Then they had their watch sale. The watch sale grossed $20 million. Everything seemed to do quite well. The sell-through rate was very high, if not close to 100%. All kinds of interesting watches and so forth. And then we're getting on to this, the upcoming sales. And among them is this, is probably one of the finest Chinlung seals that's ever been carved. And what's really interesting about this seal is it is made of soapstone. And a lot of times when we get inquiries here, people will send me carvings of things believing that they're jades. All right, and anybody looking at this at a glance would think it was jade. It's not, it's soapstone. But extraordinarily carved, extraordinarily well polished, and beautifully rendered, scale, everything. Absolute perfection. It was the kind of thing that the Emperor Chinlung was an enormous fan of. This was carved at the imperial workshops, and it was a seal that he used to basically stamp on paintings often in the imperial collection to show his approval of them. And this is the seal. And the bottom is carved intaglio, and just absolutely spectacular. And the estimate on this is upon request. And what is it going to bring? I don't know. 10 to 20 million dollars maybe US, somewhere in that range. But it's one of the holy grails of all the seals in the world. It's got the only provenance was that it sold at Sotheby's in May of 1965. That's the last time it was on the market, and we'll see how that does. There's a lot of interesting stuff here. And then you have the Marchant, the famous dealer in London, has a section of sale. This is Marchant 2, and they've put up a number of things out of their collection. They have a lot of great things. Looks like they're cleaning out some closets, but with some very fine objects. I shouldn't say it quite like that. Let's see here. What are some of the highlights? Oh, the strong and monochromes. I thought I had a couple of the pictures pulled up, but these are all estimated sort of in the $30,000 to $60,000 range, somewhere in there. On average, there's a few pieces that are estimated quite a bit higher. There's this Yongchen market period bottle vase with a long neck at $1 to $1.5 million, and there's this Clair de Lune blue, or they called it a roux type, but it looks like Clair de Lune, a soft blue Chinlung vase estimated at 5 to 7 million Hong Kong. And that of course comes out to around $700,000 to $900,000, all significant objects. And then of course the featured lot is this pink chrysanthemum, familiar rose pink chrysanthemum dish, mark of Yongchen, estimated at 2 to 3 million Hong Kong. So we'll come back after these sales are over. We'll do a review next week and see how everything went. It'll be interesting. And then on to this. This is an auction that's been in the news. Even if you're not a Chinese porcelain collector, you may know about this sale. It is the part of the private collection from Joseph Lau. And Joseph Lau is a Hong Kong billionaire, real estate guy. He was tied to the Evergreen real estate debacle over there. He was an investor in it, that kind of thing. And he's a wanted fugitive. This is the thing that's really amazing. He's a wanted fugitive in Macau. He was convicted of bribing a government official for several $1 million in cash, I guess, in order to get a land deal. He's sort of a character. And he got in a lot of trouble. He was convicted and sentenced to 4 or 5 years in jail. And but unfortunately for Macau, they don't have an extradition agreement with Hong Kong, so they can't get their hands on him to make him serve his sentence. And he's been also in the news because he's lost quite a bit of money in the last year. I think he's down to around 10 or 12 billion dollars or something, poor man. And he's selling some of his collection. He's selling some of his wine collection and so forth. He's an avid collector. He also collects American paintings. He collects Warhols and that kind of thing. He owns one of the Warhols of Mao Zedong, as a matter of fact, one of the famous ones. But he's selling off a number of porcelains that are in his collection that he's bought basically since the 80s. And there's just, 9 or 10 of them? 8 of them. And they're quite extraordinary. And I want to go through them because these are, regardless of who he is, these are great pieces of porcelain. And this is one of them, is this Yongchen market period peach plate. With bats all over it. And we've all seen these, over the years in different forms. In the Chinlung period, they were very, very popular. This is one from the Yongchen period, and it's an 8 peach example, and it represents the 8 immortals who are representative of long life and longevity, and these have been long associated with the 60th birthday of imperial leaders and so forth. But I wanted to share this because the decoration on this is extraordinary, and this is a big plate. I think it's like 50 centimeters, so it's a 17, 18-inch wide charger. It's a big plate, but absolutely beautifully painted, vivid colors, beautifully outlined, wonderful shades of greens, so many shades of green. And then, of course, the way the branches are all carefully picked out and detailed. And then the peaches, just, these ripening peaches just blistering with juices coming forward and so forth. Estimated at $18 to $25 million Hong Kong, which is roughly $2.5 to $3.5 million. But it's a big plate. It's a very big plate. I want to double check the size on this. What is it? 51 centimeters. So it is, 45 centimeters is 18 inches. So this is around 20 inches in diameter. This is a big plate, major item. And then he has this exceptional Hongxi Marken period yellow and blue decorated plate. And these plates, of course, are copied to death. All over China, and they turn up in auctions. We've seen them here in the U.S., and the copies sell for $1,000, $2,000, and that sort of thing. There's only a handful of these in the world, and Mr. Lau had one of them. It measures 26 inches in diameter, so it's about 9 or 10 inches wide. But what's interesting about the decorations, I wanted to share this with you folks, because when you see these, there's certain characteristics that are tied to this plate and this type of decoration. One of the things that's interesting, when you look at this plate from a distance, the outlining of all the items, all of the elements, all the flowers and the pomegranates and so forth, all look like they're probably done in dark blue. I mean, you say, well, it's outlined in dark blue and then decorated in. But when you blow this up and take because they provided such great photographs, amazing photography, what do you see? The outlining is actually in green. It's sort of an olive green that they use to outline it. And green, is a nice transitional color between yellow and blue, because it's sort of a combination of the two colors. So there you have it. And if you study things like this and how they did it, when you see the copies come up on the market, you'll more quickly be able to discern them. And here you have these wonderfully outlined and then colored in and treated in these little in this very nice yellow glaze all the way around. You can see here where some of the green spilled over into where the blue is going to be. Little tiny bits here and there are a little bit off, but overall it's an extraordinary piece of porcelain, estimated at 3 to 5 million Hong Kong. All right, we'll see how that does. And then on to this. This is one of the major lots of all the Chinese art that's being sold this week down over in Hong Kong. Is this Yongle period dragon jar. Really amazing piece of art. And it was sold last at Sotheby's in Hong Kong in 1989. That was when he bought it. Absolutely spectacular jar. It's about 9 inches tall. It's not a huge jar. But they provided, again, great close-up photography of this. And here you can see what heaping and piling really looks like. And you have all this very fine detail work that they're letting you look at up close. You can see where the brushes touched, where they lifted, how they decorated it. You see the bubbles suffused just along the top of that blue line. You can see the bubbles in the glaze and so forth. And there's some pretty high hopes for that, obviously. And then there's this, an incredibly rare double-gored iron red, underglazed iron red vase. Qianlong period. And what's interesting is how red it is. That's the thing that really sets this thing apart. Sometimes iron underglazed red decoration isn't this strong a red. It's not. This is almost a cherry red. Beautiful color. It didn't turn green really anywhere. And a couple of slight spots. There's a slight greenish tinge. There's one right here, for example. But that's about it. This is an absolutely stupendous vase. And estimated at 8 to 12 million Hong Kong, or roughly $1 to $1.3 million. It's around, it's 29 centimeters, so it's around 10 inches tall, roughly. And again, the last time, the only provenance on this was sold at Sotheby's in 1990, and there's a bit written on it. And there's very good write-ups on these. This is the other thing, too, is that read the write-ups this time around. When they go into the detail of these objects and how they were formed, why they were formed, why they were significant. All right, and then we get over here to the Tang and Berthollet collection, and this is the bigger of all the sales. There's some great things, and here there's some things we see all the time too. And they're all rare and wonderful. Longquan celadon incense burners and this sort of thing. But there's a number of very high-priced, high-ticket items in this catalog. It's a fairly long sale. This is the biggest of all the sales. And we'll take a look at them. One of them is the Gardens of Pleasure, Qing Dynasty, Kangxi period. This is an album of erotic art. Unbelievably well painted, though. If you're not a fan of the subject matter, but it has to do with a romance of a couple and their saga, and there are lots of pictures of them, but the quality of painting here, and this originally had belonged to C.T. Liu many years ago. And this thing is expected to bring somewhere between 13 and 18 million Hong Kong dollars. And the Berthold collection has a lot of this sort of erotic and sensuous and romantic Chinese art in their collection. And a number of the pieces are in this sale. If you're interested in the genre, it's a great opportunity to look. Save the images. If you can't buy the art, you're not in a position to step up to bat for $1 million. Save the images for your own references. Always do that with foot rims, vases, the pieces from the Lau collection. Keep a folder, collect these images because they are wonderful, and they're sometimes not so easy to find the next time around when you want to find them. All right, and Sotheby's did not put a catalog out. They are not apparently doing catalogs much anymore, so we won't be able to add them to the reference section until they decide to maybe do them again. But at any rate, this sale, you see the little countdown clock over here, 13 hours to go. And then there's this really good Jun Purple Splash Northern Song to Jin Dynasty bowl. But the color of this bowl is just unbelievable. It's estimated at 6 to 8 million Hong Kong. But when you pull it in, and we've seen Jun Yao before, we've seen Ming copies of Jun Yao pieces and so forth, but this is really intense. And when you look at the way the glaze was put onto this and the color shifts that go through it all the way down the body from light blue, almost white, to dark blue, to maroon, to red, to green. That's the copper red reacting in the glaze. And then lots of little pinholes, of course, as you expect to see. You want to see pinholes on these things. If the surface is absolutely smooth and free of pinholes, be leery. And here is the bottom of it, and that is what the foot rim of one of these should look like from the Sung Dynasty. Right there. And this was exhibited at the Oriental Ceramic Society. It's got ownership stickers, of course, left behind and so forth. But here's the body. 12th century, absolutely amazing. 6 to 8 million Hong Kong. And then hopping over here to this, an extremely rare limestone seated figure of Maitreya, Northern Wei Dynasty. But this is 6th century piece. But this is absolutely stupendous. It is 61 centimeters tall, so it's 24 and a half inches tall, roughly. Estimated at 9 to 12 million Hong Kong dollars. But the quality of the carving of this statue is just, I couldn't believe it when I saw it. Just absolutely breathtaking. Just absolutely superb all the way up. And the surface is even, crisp, beautifully done. The facial expression, the way the robes fold over, the position of the hand, all of it. Every detail, just meticulously done and from the 6th century. And estimated at 9 to 12 million Hong Kong, so 1.1, 1.2 to around $1.5 million. And I think this is just an absolutely, if you're a carving, if you buy statuary and early carvings in limestone, things like that, this is just a breathtaking piece of work. It's really amazing, really amazing. And then over here to this another one of the big ticket items in the sale is this Khotan green jade boulder, Qing Dynasty, Qinlong $25 to $50 million estimate, or that comes out to about three and a half to they're really not sure where it's going to go, to about a little over $6 million estimate. And this is a rather unique stone in that it has I think 5 poems that were favorite poems of the Emperor Qianlong. This stone was carved at the imperial workshops. This was not something that was carved elsewhere and brought in. This was a stone in 1759. You have to, if you don't know this, and it's mentioned. Actually, there's an article in here that actually talks about it. In 1759, the Emperor Qianlong defeated some opposition and Mongols and so forth in the what's the region here? I'm trying to get that, the Xinjiang region, and what it did was it opened up access to the jade mines. And after 1859, the supply of jade greatly increased. It was no longer difficult for the imperial court to get jade, and they brought in all kinds of pieces. And the imperial workshop went to work making these things for the amusement and for the pleasure of the emperor. He was enormously encouraging of his artists to do this kind of work. Very scholarly, aesthetically extremely attractive, and in this one they included all these poems on the stone itself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 poems, not 5, 6 poems, and it's carved front and back, meticulously carved. And if you pull it in, you'll see this famous representation of the pine tree. And this is the same style of representation you see of pine trees done on Qianlong chargers and Yongchen plates and so forth. That's in the center going up. And here it is being represented, the rendering of the pine tree in this way was very popular. And you have this rocky grotto going down. It's just a great piece of jade. Holy mackerel, what am I saying? Anyway, I just loved it. And there is an exceptional article tied to this by Guofu Zhang, who's one of the scholars in Hong Kong. And there's a very good, very long article in here about the jades of the Qianlong period. He talks about the different poems. It's worth reading. If you love jade, read the story. Come over and read it. I was tempted to actually copy it out, reference it back to Sotheby's, and post it in a blog, but y'all know where to find it. So go right ahead and read it at your leisure there. All right, and then on to this. This is a very famous jade. It's a large yellow russet jade carved figure of a camel. And yellow jade is, of course, very desirable. And this type of jade, with the yellow and brown inclusions, is particularly well suited for carving things like camels because of the fur and the color of the animal. But what's unusual about this jade is that most of these Ming jades of camels sitting in the recumbent position are just a couple of inches long. This one is 6 inches long. That's almost monumental size for one of these. And here's a close-up of it. I love the photography. You really get to look at it. And if you look at all of the little details, when you're looking at, because copies of this jade turns up on the market. This jade has been reproduced, has been on the covers of books and catalogs about jades. If you look at the way the eyes are done up here, the way the mouth is done, the ears, the little details on the humps, the way the balance of the legs, how they're carved here and so forth, and then underneath it's fully articulated with where's the rest? They showed the bottom, I think, didn't they? Well, they didn't show it, but anyway, the bottom of it shows the hoofs curled under and all the little details. It's a very famous jade. Estimated, the range is pretty wide, 8 to 16 million. So the estimate is basically $1 to $2 million. They don't really know. But what's really interesting is that if you have jade books, you'll remember it because it's on the cover of the collection of Gerald Godfrey. Gerald Godfrey was a famous collector, and this jade was on the cover of books about his collection, and I happen to have a copy of it. And when I saw it, I went, "Wow, there's that jade again!" Amazing stone, and we'll see where that lands. And then, of course, you have things like this. There's Three Friends of Winter, a Qianlong white jade teapot, estimated at 4 to 7 million Hong Kong. Stupendous. It almost looks frosted, like it's got frosting, ice on it. It's just very, very crisp, very white, very pure, Beautifully shaped handles, wonderful finial on the top, and then a conforming spout to the body, and then you have these plum blossoms growing up around it. And again, and I don't think this has been on the market for a long time either, almost 20 years. It was on the market last at Christie's in 2001. And this is going to be a real test because a lot of these things haven't been on the market in a long time. And it'll be really interesting to see where they end up. Then there's this. I think we mentioned this in the auction preview we did a number of weeks ago when these sales were first announced, is this very, very rare Qinlong blue and white vase estimated at 8 to 12 million Hong Kong. But the quality of the decoration, it's interesting because I looked at the quality of this, and some of you may remember we talked in last week's video about that broken plate that's for sale on eBay right now that had all the damage and the bad infill and all that, but the quality of the work when you looked at the details were extremely good. And this is that plate is sort of the quality of this vase. If you're looking for quality, okay, if you're not looking for marks and periods and all that, but if you really enjoy superb quality, this is what you look for. And when I saw that other plate that was this for sale on eBay, I think it's up to $300 or $400 despite the damage. These two remind me of each other: the tone, the quality of the work, and so forth. And here you have this absolutely stupendously done vase. As I said, it's estimated basically at $1 to $1.3 million. And this isn't a huge, a small vase. This is 68 centimeters. So it's over 2 feet tall, 2 feet 4 inches, 2 feet 3 inches roughly. This is a pretty good sized pot. Beautifully done, mark and period, and a major item. And then there's this, an extremely rare miniature Falang Kai boys double gourd blue enamel mark and period vase, Qinlong. And this is a small vase, 9 centimeters, so it's around 4 inches tall, roughly, right? Estimated at $12 to $18 million. And this was done at the Imperial Workshops. This one in this style is the only known example. It's very pretty, but I have to say I don't find the brushwork that extraordinary. And some of you might say, "What are you talking about?" Well, if you look at the work on here is good. It's a small vase. Take all that into account. But to my mind, the quality of the decoration on here isn't that extraordinary. It just isn't. It's unique. It's the only one. It was probably was done at the Imperial Workshop. It's interesting, but I've seen better Gazai decoration on China trade wares than that. And so I'm kind of surprised at the estimate. I think the estimate is largely owed to the rarity and where it was made rather than the quality of the object. It does have the famous 4-character Qinlong studio mark on it, the way they did it at the Atelier at the Imperial Palace. That soft blue, delicately painted on the surface, overglazed blue enamels, very fine white paste shown on the foot rim, as you can see. But is it going to reach $1.5 to $2.5 million? I don't know. I'm kind of of all the things that are for sale and all these things with big estimates, this is not one of my favorites. It just isn't. We talked about that already, and we talked about that. And it's funny because they're doing these interesting little sales with just 2 lots on them. You have the Imperial Catalog of 25 cardinal seals of the Qinlong Emperor, which is really interesting, I suppose, if you're into seals. 800,000 to 1.2 million Hong Kong, which is, roughly 100 to $110,000, which is nothing to sneeze at. But then you have the famous, estimate upon request seal, the soapstone seal we talked about at the beginning, and we'll see how that does. But this is sort of a quick overview of everything that's coming along, and Hong Kong is going to be. This is going to be the end results of this sale are going to sort of be the barometer of the market, taking the temperature, see how world events may or may not affect the art market. And it may not have any effect at all. I remember during the big crash in the economy back in 2008 and 9 and 10, and back in there when there was so much confusion, so much fear, so much worry in the market, the major auction houses had no trouble attracting multi-million-dollar buyers for Rothkos and major art. Somehow the money can be found, and I don't know where, even from people that have lost huge amounts of money because they're collectors, I suppose, and collectors, they'll cut on other things, but if they see something they feel they have to have for their collection, they're going to move heaven and earth to get their hands on it because they're fearful that it'll never turn up again. So that may be part of it. I don't know, but we'll see what happens. Follow the sales tomorrow, and we'll be back tomorrow with our regular video. Thanks for watching, and have a great day, and the rest of your week and all that stuff. And we'll see you tomorrow with the regular weekly video. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.